Her mother never hit her, never screamed, and that's exactly why it took her 30 years to realize she was being controlled. Not with anger, with silence. The kind that teaches you to doubt yourself without ever saying a word. If you grew up constantly adjusting yourself, but can't explain why, this is going to feel uncomfortably familiar, and by the end, you'll have a name for it. She's 37 now. She moved out 17 years ago, and she still rehearses phone calls before she dials. She still wonders if it was her fault. Her name was Leah, suburban Connecticut. Good school, piano lessons, perfect Christmas photos. Her mother, Diane, was a speech pathologist, the kind of woman neighbors described as a saint. Everyone loved Diane. Everyone. Which is part of the problem. Because when the person who hurts you is someone everyone admires, you don't question them. You question yourself. It didn't feel wrong. Not at 5. Not at 10. Not even at 23 when she was still calling home before making decisions about her own apartment. The thing about growing up with a parent like Diane is that there's no moment you can point to. No bruise. No locked door. No dramatic confrontation you can replay in your head and say, "There, that's when I knew." She never raised her voice. That's how Leah describes it. Instead, Diane had something more effective. Silence. A specific kind of silence. The kind that fills the room the moment you've said the wrong thing. Not a pause, not a breath. A withdrawal. The temperature drops. The warmth leaves her eyes, and you feel it in your chest before you understand it in your head. Have you ever said something completely ordinary, "I'm going out with friends tonight," and watched someone's face change so slightly that nobody else in the room would notice? But you noticed, and suddenly you were apologizing. Not for what you said, for what they felt. That's not sensitivity. That's a reflex, and it was trained into you. There's a term for this. You just haven't heard it yet. Leah didn't learn how to read first. She learned how to read people. By age 7, she could predict her mother's mood from the sound of the car door. A normal close meant a normal evening. A hard close, she'd already be straightening the living room by the time the front door opened. This is the part nobody flags as damage. Because it doesn't look like damage. It looks like a well-behaved child. Diane never said, "You're not good enough." She didn't have to. She had something better. Conditional warmth. When Leah performed, good grades, recitals, helping without being asked, Diane was present, engaged, proud. When Leah had needs of her own, a bad day, a conflict with a friend, a moment where she just wanted to be upset without fixing anything, Diane would go quiet. Or worse, she'd make it about herself. "I just worry about you, Leah. You know how much I worry. I can't sleep when you're upset." She never raised her voice. That's how it works. You bring a problem. You walk away comforting them. You go to a parent for support and somehow end up apologizing for needing it. That confusion doesn't feel like abuse. It feels like love. It feels like closeness. At 13, Leah started keeping a journal. Not the kind teenagers keep. Not about crushes or school drama. Hers was a list. Things that made Mom happy. Things that made Mom quiet. Things that were safe to say. Things that were not. She didn't know what she was doing. She was mapping survival. And this is where most people lose themselves. Not in the screaming, not in the hitting, in the mapping. In the constant, exhausting work of keeping someone else's emotional temperature stable, while yours doesn't matter. And this is where it becomes part of you. By high school, Leah was a straight-A student, volleyball captain, peer mediator. No breakdowns, no rebellion, no visible struggle. Which is exactly why nobody saw it. Because the system wasn't failing, it was working perfectly. The more perfect she looked, the less real she felt. They called it maturity. It was adaptation. There's a kind of parent who does everything right, on paper. The lunches are packed, the report cards are framed, the Christmas photos are perfect. And the child grows up believing that the reason they feel empty is because something is wrong with them. Not the system, not the parent, them. Most people don't recognize this until it's already shaped every decision they make. She never raised her voice. That's why nobody asked. She thought she'd escaped it. She moved out at 20, put 1,000 miles between herself and that house. And then she met someone kind, and everything she thought she'd left behind walked through the door with her. At 21, Leah met Ryan at a coffee shop near her college campus. He was disorganized, laughed too loud, left dishes in the sink. Everything Diane wasn't. Leah loved him immediately. Not because of who he was, because of how she felt around him. For the first time in her life, she could say something without checking someone's face first. She moved in with him after a year, and within 3 months, something started to break. Not the relationship, her. Because Ryan was messy, he was late, he forgot things. He didn't read her signals. And Leah, without knowing why, started to feel a rising panic she couldn't name. She started cleaning before he got home. She started apologizing for asking him to do things. She rewrote text messages to make sure they sounded light enough. She lay awake wondering if he was upset with her, even when he was sleeping peacefully next to her. And this is where people think it's about the relationship. It isn't. She was performing for someone who never asked her to. Scanning for danger that wasn't there. Holding her breath next to someone who had never once given her a reason to. And this is why it follows you into adulthood. Because it's not a reaction anymore. It's a conditioned response. And it was installed before you were old enough to refuse. Ryan noticed. He didn't know much about psychology, but he knew something wasn't right when Leah apologized for crying. He asked once, "Why do you always ask if I'm okay with how you feel?" She couldn't answer. She thought about it for 3 days. And somewhere in those 3 days, staring at the ceiling of an apartment that felt nothing like her mother's house, but somehow triggered all the same reflexes, she realized she had never made a decision without asking permission. Not from Ryan, from the voice. The one that sounds exactly like Diane. Measured, calm, slightly disappointed. That runs in the background of every choice she's ever made. "Are you sure that's a good idea? You know how this makes me feel. I just want what's best for you." If you asked Leah at 22 whether she had a good childhood, she would have told you yes. She would have meant it. And she would have been wrong. Leah started therapy at 24. Her therapist, Claire, asked her a question in their 6th session that stopped everything. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because someone needed you to. Not because it was the right thing. Just because you wanted it. Leah sat there for 40 seconds. She counted them later on the session recording Claire gave her. She couldn't think of a single thing. Not a vacation. Not a career choice. Not a meal. Nothing she had chosen purely for herself, without first running it through the filter of how someone else would feel about it. That's the moment it broke open. Not with a fight, not with a confrontation, with a silence that lasted 40 seconds and carried 30 years of weight. Claire had a name for it. Actually, she had 3. The first, conditional love. Warmth that only appears when the child performs. When Leah had good grades, Diane was present. When Leah had needs, Diane went quiet. She remembered every instance. Her body never forgot. The second, emotional parentification. When the child becomes the caretaker of the parent's feelings, not the other way around. Leah had been doing this since she was 7. She just didn't know it had a name. And the third, the one that stopped her breathing, guilt as governance. Not punishment, withdrawal. The parent doesn't rage, they sadden. And the child learns the lesson without a single word being spoken. My feelings cause damage. Leah sat with that last sentence for a long time. The result is a person who is very, very good at taking care of everyone else and completely unable to identify what they need for themselves. She never raised her voice. That's why it takes 30 years to name, because there's nothing to point to. No scar, no police report, no screaming match you can replay and say, that was wrong. Just a girl who grew up believing that her feelings were an inconvenience, and a mother who never told her that directly, because she didn't have to. The silence said it clearly enough. If you're in it right now, you probably don't see it. Not because you're blind, because you were raised to see it as normal. It took Leah 2 more years to make one phone call. She didn't cut contact with Diane. She considered it, spent 2 years considering it. Talked to Claire about it until the word boundary stopped sounding like a weapon. She called Diane on a Tuesday evening, said 4 sentences she had rehearsed for a week. Mom, I love you, but I need to stop performing for your approval. That means some of our conversations are going to be different, and I need you to let them be. Diane was quiet for 11 seconds. Then she said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've only ever wanted you to be happy. Leah didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just said, I know, Mom. I know you believe that. And hung up. That was the first conversation she had with her mother where she didn't apologize before it ended. The first one in 35 years. The most dangerous kind of control doesn't announce itself. It doesn't yell. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't leave marks. It raises you. It feeds you. It drives you to school and helps with homework and tells you it loves you every single day. And it teaches you, slowly, gently, without ever saying the words, that your feelings are a burden, that your needs come second, that love is something you earn by being easy, and that if you ever stop performing, the warmth goes away. And even after you leave, Even after therapy, after boundaries, after years of rebuilding yourself piece by piece, you still hear it. That voice. Not angry, never angry. Just quiet. Just slightly sad. Just enough to make you wonder, am I being selfish? And it doesn't sound like her anymore. It sounds like you. She never raised her voice. That's why you still hear it. The most dangerous part isn't what happened. It's that it still feels like love. And that's what makes it so hard to let go, even now. Take care of yourself tonight. If someone came to your mind while watching this, there's a reason for that. What happens when there isn't just one child inside the pattern? When there are two, and the parent treats them completely differently? Not one child who's controlled, two children who are weaponized against each other. One who can do no wrong, one who can do nothing right. That's next.